I'm saying from my point of view, seeing someone that has actually poured that much time and effort into understanding your own culture, into understanding why things are the way they are. And like you said, you got laughed out of class for something that nowadays people are looking at going, well, maybe that's not so crazy anymore, right? Maybe this idea isn't so crazy anymore. I mean, I think it's funny we talk about things like abolish the police and all sorts of there's tons of catchphrases and buzzwords going around right now, and a lot of people have no idea what they mean to different people. The fact that they can mean different things to different people, like to me, abolish the police doesn't mean we get rid of police altogether. To me, that's not what it means, and that's not what it should mean. They definitely serve a purpose, I think, and we'll probably end up getting into that. I just think that they've got too much on their plates, and we need to separate and parcel out tasks to the correct people to handle different situations. They're meant to track down crime. Let them do that. That's what they're there for. You know what I mean? So I'm sure we'll get into all of that, though.
For sure. So just like in the context of Canadian police, just to kind of start it off, the Northwest Mounted Police was our like first our first like countrywide policing service, and they
Yeah.
were essentially created to clear the West for settlement. So directly police were really created in this country to police poor folk, and to police Indigenous folk, and to police Black and Brown folks, because the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant settlers of mainly Ontario and Quebec were the key concern. Quebec did have some issues in regards to they were also heavily policed because the French were discriminated against, but in today's context, I don't really think that's super relevant. So when kind of like breaking down what exactly a criminalized behavior is, we have to look at why that behavior is criminalized. So a main starting point for me was, why do we criminalize certain behaviors? Why do we pay more attention to people who do certain types of crimes versus other people who do other types of crimes? So, I mean, somebody could steal millions of dollars from a company and get time in a minimum security prison, whereas someone else, gets caught selling drugs and then they end up doing 25, 30 years in a maximum security prison. It's just very disproportionate, especially in sentencing. And I feel as though, too, that there's a lot of misconception that goes around about how Indigenous folks are sentenced and how they serve time in Canada. Because what I've heard from a lot of people is that these healing lodges let murderers get out early. They let people not serve their time the right way. They give people breaks. That there's some type of principle in sentencing that gives Indigenous people less time than others, which is just simply not true. And how do I know this? Well, the government of Canada actually put out a recent report. So this was done January 21st, 2020. And it's actually shown that since the year 2000, the sentencing for this has increased it's grown nearly 44%. So the population of Indigenous folks already was high in the year 2000, but now it's grown by 44%. Where non-Indigenous inmates, it's actually decreased by 13 and a half, almost 14%. So we're actually seeing more and more Indigenous people being incarcerated in Canada and less of literally everyone else, which is a huge problem because we're 5% of the entire country's population, but we make up more than half of the prison's population here in Canada.
Those stats are staggering, and it's frustrating because a lot of people don't understand that it's all intertwined. You're dealing with the reasoning behind the sentencing that you're looking at. It's very simple. It continues driving the wedge between classes. It continues separating lower class from upper class. It continues driving that wedge and creating that disparity so that the people who are on the bottom can continue to stay on the bottom. And when you're dealing with something like socioeconomic disparity, you're looking at it, and you look at it on a countrywide level. You're looking at specific areas that are targeted, specific people that are targeted and placed within those areas. People don't live in housing because they want to live in housing. They live in housing because they have no other choice. And when you put people in that situation where they're forced to live somewhere simply because that's what they can afford, there's no other recourse. When you start jailing those people or over policing those people, you're going to find crime in that area, right? So all of these things are linked. When you have people, you put them in jail and then you hold them there for a long time, which creates a disparity of wealth for them because you're not making any money when you're in jail, obviously. And then when you finally do let these people out, you're placing them into halfway houses or homes or shelters or whatnot, where they still don't have any access to creating any type of wealth to help pull themselves out of that situation. And then on top of that, now they're in these situations and you're still forcing them to pay rent. You're still forcing them to try and become a productive member of society. But now these are people who are felons, so nobody wants to hire them. So you've now created this cycle where a person who will take your average 18 to 20-year-old Black, Native, any color boy off the street, okay, who goes and decides to do something dumb and he wants to sell some weed just to get by. You know what I mean? That's what he's doing just to get by. And that boy gets picked up, he gets put into the system. They decide to give him a nice heavy sentence. They put him in jail for 10, 15 years of his life. Cool. He gets out when he's 30. He's now a grown man, but he has no skills because he missed out on school. He has no access to a job because he's now a felon. And where do you expect him to go? What do you expect him to do? There's no help, there's no support for these people. That's where I think the biggest change in our system needs to happen. There needs to be a change within our education system to help give people the step up that they need to get proper jobs so that they're not stuck within the situations that they're stuck in. And I think that there needs to be proper social support for people, whether it be mental support, whether it be addiction support, whether it be proper social support. I'm not a huge proponent of, say, having a lot. I don't know how that all factors in, and I'd have to do more research myself in countries that do have their own universal income to see if that would make a change. But I think that our criminal system is definitely hardwired to target people of a lower socioeconomic bracket. And that's just the be all and the end all of it.